There are 10 garden fertilizers and fertilizer types that can create real problems in your soil, your water, and sometimes your wallet, and most home gardeners have no idea what they're actually buying. Curious. A lot of these products are still easy to find in America, even though some ingredients or uses have been heavily restricted, phased out, or flat-out banned in parts of Europe. And number 3 on this list is one people spread every spring thinking they're feeding the lawn, when a big chunk of it often ends up washing straight past the roots. Excited. I've also got a bonus tip at the end that changed how I fertilize almost everything I grow. Hey Rootkeeper, welcome back. And if you're new here, welcome to The Rootkeeper, the channel where we learn how to grow smarter, spend less, and build gardens that actually last instead of becoming expensive high-maintenance traps. I wanted to cover this because fertilizer is one of those things people use with good intentions, but it's also one of the easiest places to waste money and damage your soil without realizing it. If you're trying to grow better plants without overdoing the chemicals or falling for the label on the bag, do me a favor and hit subscribe right now. And turn on notifications because I put out practical videos that help you avoid costly garden mistakes and make better decisions season after season. It's free and it takes 1 second. Now, quick reality check before we go further. Europe is not one single rulebook, and banned can mean different things depending on the country, the ingredient, the dose, the crop, or where the product is used. Sometimes it's a full ban. Sometimes it's a strict limit. Sometimes it's not the fertilizer itself, but a contaminant or nitrogen form that gets heavily restricted. That matters. So this is really about products and fertilizer categories that raise enough environmental or health concerns that parts of Europe have come down harder on them than the US has. That's the real story. All right, let's get into it. Starting with number 10. Number 10 is high phosphorus bloom booster fertilizer, the flower-chasing mistake. You've seen these bags and bottles with numbers like 15-30-15 or 10-52-10, promising bigger blooms and more fruit. Sounds great. The trouble is, most garden soils already have enough phosphorus, especially if compost, manure, or starter fertilizer has been used for years. When you keep piling it on, plants often don't use it, and the excess can build up in the soil or move into runoff. Here's what most people miss. Phosphorus doesn't usually fix poor flowering if the real problem is low light, bad pruning, or stressed roots. It just adds cost. A 4-pound water-soluble bloom booster can run $18 to $30, and if it's not solving the actual issue, that's money gone. Some European regions are much tighter on phosphorus use because of water pollution concerns. And honestly, I think they've got a point on this one. But if you think that's overrated, wait until you see number 9. This next one gets sold as fast green up, and that speed is exactly the problem. Number 9 is ammonium nitrate heavy lawn fertilizer, the quick hit green paint. Ammonium nitrate has long been restricted or tightly controlled in parts of Europe for both safety and environmental reasons, and in home gardening it can be a real blunt instrument. It pushes fast top growth. That sounds useful until you realize soft, quick leaf growth often means weaker tissue, more mowing, and more disease pressure in warm, humid weather. On a 5,000 square foot lawn, one heavy application can green things up in a week, sure, but it can also create flushes of growth the roots can't really support. The part nobody mentions is how easy it is to over-apply because people equate dark green with healthy. Not always. If you're feeding just for color, you're managing appearance, not plant health. And if rain hits within a day or two, a lot of that nitrogen can head somewhere other than your lawn. Now the next one is where things get more common in the home garden aisle. This is the stuff people grab because the label says feeds instantly. Number 8 is high salt synthetic fertilizer, the root zone burner. I'm talking about strong, fast-soluble products with numbers like 20-20-20 or 24-8-16 used too often and too heavily. These aren't evil by default, I should mention that. Used correctly, they can be useful. But the salt load, basically the concentration of dissolved nutrients, can stress roots, especially in containers, raised beds, and dry soil. Here's the trick. When fertilizer salts build up, roots struggle to take in water, even when the pot or bed looks moist. That's why a plant can look thirsty and burned at the same time. If you've ever seen brown leaf edges after feeding, this may be why. A 1-pound tub may only cost $8 to $15, but if it stunts your seedlings or scorches your tomatoes, it's not cheap. Not really. Okay, this next one. I have a lot to say about this because people spread it like it's harmless confetti. Number 7 is weed and feed fertilizer, the combo product that misses both jobs. Weed and feed products mix fertilizer with herbicides, and they're wildly popular because people love the idea of one bag doing two things at once. But that convenience comes with trade-offs. These products often rely on timing that doesn't actually match what your lawn or garden needs. Your grass may need feeding in one window, while the weeds are only vulnerable in another. So you end up applying herbicide when you don't need it, or fertilizer when conditions aren't right. Here's what most people miss. A lot of European countries are much stricter about casual herbicide use in residential landscapes than many parts of the US, and I get why. If you buy one 14,000 square foot bag for $35 to $60 and use it at the wrong time, you've paid for convenience and gotten mediocre results on both fronts. I've never been a big fan of combo products. Too blunt, too sloppy. But number 6 is one people think of as old school and natural, which makes the downside harder to spot. Number 6 is fresh or poorly composted manure-based fertilizer, the natural overload. Manure can be fantastic when it's aged properly and used in the right amount. I use composted manure myself. But fresh manure or cheap bagged products that aren't fully stabilized can bring weed seeds, excess salts, ammonia burn, and pathogen risk into the garden. Chicken manure is especially potent. Some products can test around 322 or stronger, and if you pile it on before planting lettuce, spinach, or carrots, you can create problems fast. The part nobody mentions is that organic does not mean safe in any amount, not even close. In some European systems, nutrient loading from manure is watched closely because of nitrate pollution concerns. One overloaded bed can smell bad, grow lush, weak plants, and still underperform. That's frustrating. Now, the next one is where things get really wasteful, and this is the one I teased earlier. Number 5 is high nitrogen lawn fertilizer before heavy rain, the runoff special. This is less about one brand and more about a habit sold by the whole industry. Every spring, people spread 2803 or 3204 across wet or compacted lawns because they want a quick green up before the season starts. Then it rains an inch or two, and a chunk of that nitrogen moves before the roots can use it. Here's what most people miss. Turf roots only take up nutrients efficiently when the timing, soil temperature, and moisture are actually right. Throwing fertilizer down on saturated ground is basically paying to feed the storm drain. At $45 to $70 a bag, plus the time you spent spreading it, that's a lousy return. And many European regulations focus heavily on application timing for exactly this reason. The product in the bag matters. So does when you use it. Hey, quick pause. If you're getting value from this, smash that like button. It helps more root keepers find this channel. And tell me in the comments, what fertilizer have you used that gave you the most disappointing results? I read every single comment. All right, let's keep going. Number 4 is sewage sludge-based fertilizer, often sold as biosolids, the one with baggage. This is one of the most controversial categories for a reason. Biosolids can supply nitrogen and organic matter, and they've been used in agriculture and landscaping for years. But the concern is contaminants, things like heavy metals, industrial residues, and PFAS, which are forever chemicals that break down extremely slowly. Regulations vary a lot, but some European countries have taken a much harder line on sludge use because of contamination risk. Here's what most people miss. The fertilizer label may sound earthy and beneficial, but it won't always scream This came from treated waste streams. You have to read carefully. If I'm feeding food crops, especially root crops, I want cleaner inputs than that. Personally, this is one I avoid. But if you think that's concerning, wait until you see number 3. This one is sold as a premium feature and often wastes nutrients right under people's noses. Number 3 is quick-release synthetic fertilizer in shallow-rooted systems, the leaching machine. Think containers, hanging baskets, thin lawn soils, sandy beds, and fresh raised beds that haven't built organic matter yet. A lot of fast-release fertilizers dump nutrients all at once, especially nitrogen, and in those shallow or sandy systems, there's just nowhere for it to stay. It leaches. That means it moves downward with water before plants can grab much of it. The part nobody mentions is that leached fertilizer doesn't just disappear. It ends up somewhere. Maybe groundwater, maybe runoff, maybe just out of your root zone where it does nothing for the plant you paid to feed. And this is why more frequent and stronger is often the wrong move. I learned that the hard way with container tomatoes years ago. Big feed, big leaf growth, then stress, then disappointment. Now the next one is one I almost put at number 1 because people assume slow-release prills are automatically better in every situation. Number 2 is polymer-coated controlled-release fertilizer with questionable breakdown, the plastic confetti issue. These are the little coated pellets in a lot of premium potting mixes and container fertilizers. They release nutrients over 3 months, 6 months, sometimes 9 months depending on temperature and moisture. Useful idea. But some coatings are polymer-based, and there's growing concern about microplastic residue from certain controlled-release products. Europe has been moving much harder on intentionally added microplastics in many product categories, and that's something gardeners need to pay attention to. Here's what most people miss. If you use a lot of potting mix every season, those little coatings can add up in the waste stream and soil system. I'm not saying every coated fertilizer is automatically terrible. I am saying this category deserves more scrutiny than it gets. And now, number 1. This is, in my opinion, the fertilizer habit causing the most damage for home gardeners because it combines waste, runoff, soil imbalance, and marketing hype all in one place. Number 1 is routine blanket fertilizing without a soil test, the guesswork trap. I know that's broader than a single bag on a shelf, but stay with me. This is the root problem underneath so many of the others. People buy a 10-10-10, a 16-16-16, or a seasonal all-purpose blend and spread it across everything, lawn, tomatoes, roses, shrubs, all of it, without ever checking what the soil already has. That's how you end up with phosphorus overload, salt buildup, weak growth, wasted money, and disappointing harvests. A basic soil test often costs $15 to $40 through an extension office. One wrong fertilizer program can cost 2 or 3 times that in a single season. Here's what most people miss. Smarter fertilizing usually means using less, not more. That changed how I garden in a big way. Once I started feeding based on actual need, my plants got steadier and my costs went down. Now for that bonus tip, because this is the one thing I recommend before buying any fertilizer at all. Feed the soil first, then fill the gaps. What I mean by that is start with compost, leaf mold, or well-aged organic matter to improve structure, water retention, and microbial life, the living part of the soil that helps plants access nutrients. Then, and only then, add a targeted fertilizer if a crop actually needs it. I started doing this consistently about 5 years ago, and it completely changed my raised beds. Fewer big swings, better moisture, stronger plants. If you want to start simple, add 1 to 2 inches of finished compost to a bed before planting, and use a soil test to decide what, if anything, still needs supplementing. So there you have it. 10 fertilizers and fertilizer habits that can do more harm than good, even though they're still widely sold and heavily marketed. Here's what I want you to do. Pick one fertilizer product you already own and read the full label this week. Just one. Check the NPK numbers, the ingredients, and whether you actually need it. Start there. If this helped you, share it with someone who's spending too much on garden products and not getting the results they want. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that button. We're building something here. Tell me in the comments. What fertilizer do you trust the least, and what do you use instead? Keep growing deep. I'll see you in the next one.